Right after public comment, right into regular business.
But where's our approval for the agenda? It's not on here.
It's there.
Yeah, it's not on there this time.
Not on there.
You know that didn't make it on there this time.
Approval of consent or approval of agenda has to be right in here.
Yeah, for some reason that didn't make it on.
Let's amend that. Okay, we're live.
Oh, you know what they can do?
It's January 24th, 2024. We're here for the regular weekly commissioners meeting. We have a full slate of commissioners, county administrator, and clerk of the board. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call the meeting to order, and we have a addition to the agenda.
Yes, Chair, and this is an update from Pam Loa from our Horticulture Pest and Disease Board. So she requested to give an update on the Japanese beetle situation that's been ongoing throughout the year. So the request is to amend the agenda and then approve it. And what I'd like to do is put her at the top of regular business and have her give that important update.
Mr. Chair, I would move to adjust the agenda to add the pest control update at the top of the regular business, and other than that, approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
Microphone needs to be down. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of consent, approval of agenda,
But we got the approval of warrants.
warrants, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to do the approval of the agenda that was not on here.
Well, we made the motion to amend it and approve the agenda.
All right, thank you.
So
Approval of warrants. and
today we
payroll.
have three vouchers. The first is for fund expenditures, the HAPO Center for $8,100, and know that it has been viewed by two members of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion? What is it about?
Chairs.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Next, we have a salary clearing payroll, emergency management payroll in the amount of $1,217,980.62, and note that it has been reviewed by two members of the auditor's office.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The third voucher is for fund expenditures in the amount of $385,034.80. And note that it has been reviewed by two members of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor of passing the consent agenda items 1 through 4 as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's pass. Open it up for public comment. Do we have anyone in the room for public comment today? Anyone on the phone? Hearing none. Moving on to regular business. Resolution IGA between
Benton, Franklin County, and the city of Connell.
Yeah,
We're going to amend that to add the pest control update.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
yeah, yes,
Sorry,
sir. I
you
was
said that
gonna.
earlier.
We moved that to
Yeah,
the
Chair,
top of the-
permission to speak. So we were gonna, Pam, have you jump in because I know you've got a pretty quick presentation. So thank you. Do you need? Do you have a okay.
Right.
Oh, just computer? Yeah, it'll be right in there.
Stephen?
I'll have him make you a photocopy when it comes to my.
We only got 3. There's a consent there. Okay.
Okay, we want to appreciate the opportunity to kind of jump in here on the agenda this morning. And good morning, by the way, commissioners, administration, staff.
Good morning.
And I've got Camilo Acosta with me. He's with WSDA, and he is providing a Japanese beetle update, which we feel is important for the community to be aware of coming into this year and what's going to be expected.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Pam, for the introduction. My name is Camilo Acosta. I am the Japanese Beetle Eradication Coordinator for the WSDA Pest Program. I was here back in August, I believe, giving an update on our trapping results in Pasco for the summer. Just a quick recap, we had a detection of Japanese beetle as part of the trapping survey of Franklin County's Horticultural Pest and Disease Board. Those were Pam's folks, so we really appreciate the other collaboration there. From there, after we set out traps, we caught 4 more beetles at 3 detection sites further east. You can see those detections there on West Court Street and West Henry Street. That's where we're mostly focusing our planning efforts for next year. Now, when we get trapping results like this and we find multiple beetles in a location, our minds start to think about eradication. Now that we have found a population here, as some of you may or may not be aware of the population that we're fighting in the Grandview area right now, a population in the tens of thousands of beetles that we've been fighting since 2021. You can see in this next slide the area that we're proposing. Now, when we get these detections, we start thinking about treatment and internal quarantine. Now, the larger map on the left represents the proposed quarantine area as well as the proposed treatment area. Now, the orange outline represents the internal quarantine, so it's about a 1.5 square mile area. And I'll get into, in a couple slides, I'll get into what the quarantine actually means. And then you'll see that that internal, or that inner shaded red area is the treatment area that we're considering. And then the larger picture on the left side here, this represents all of the parcels in the area that we are looking at treating. So this is just over 1,000 properties that we're looking at here, and this is a mix of residential area, parks, and schools. It's probably 90% residential in what we're looking at treating. And what exactly we're looking at treating is Japanese beetle. When we go and we treat, this is actually a picture of treatments from last year. We spray turf grass with a product called acelepryn. And so we target the beetle in its larval form, so the grubs that you find in the earth, and we're targeting the late season grubs. So when we do these treatments in the spring with our contractor, we're not actually killing those Japanese beetles that are out that year. We're targeting next year's beetles. So that's an important thing to understand, and that's why in Grandview, for example, we're still seeing beetles year after year. Even though this past year we did see a reduction in the beetle population, that's the results from just 1 year of treatment. Okay, and so this is a low-risk insecticide that we spray on the grass. It doesn't need to be watered in or anything because it comes in a liquid form. And so this would be our contractor coming out to treat these properties between April and June of 2024. And a big thing to note with this is that we ask for permission for treatment from every resident. So we won't step on their property or perform these treatments, or our contractor won't step on their property and perform treatments unless we get, written consent from that property owner. This is the same process we've been using in the Grandview area and in Wapato the last couple of years. So it would apply to Pasco just the same. Oops, wrong way. And finally, when we're talking about internal quarantine, for example, this picture is of our yard debris drop-off area up there in Grandview. This is a picture of it in early 2023. So we constructed this for residents in the quarantine area to bring their yard debris for free, to encourage residents to not transport yard debris, which could in turn transport Japanese beetle. When you're out, residents or landscapers are out, they cut the grass and they trim trees and hedges, and then that's happening during the spring and summer. And then they, a lot of times, will transport that waste many miles away to dispose of it. And that transports Japanese beetle, and it just takes one mated female to create a new population. And human transport is what we suspect happened here in Pasco to get that population pop up just a few miles from us here. So just a few examples of regulated articles that are already restricted from leaving the quarantine area in the Grandview area. The biggest one is going to be yard debris, which I just touched on. And so we've already been working with the city of Pasco to try and find a location that we can centralize and create some sort of yard debris drop-off, as that's going to be a really huge priority for us to kind of change that mindset of the people around here to not transport that waste. It's a much smaller area than in Grandview. It's 1 square mile versus the 74 square miles we're dealing with in Grandview, and we've got a lot of success with that free yard waste drop-offs, and we're hoping that we can do the same in Pasco. Some other things that we regulate in that area are cut flowers and hop bines and unshucked corn ears harvested prior to October 15th. Why October 15th is we consider the Japanese beetle adult flight season from May 15th to October 15th. So anytime between those 2 dates, you could find adult Japanese beetles flying around, mating, reproducing, and eating plants. So, and then any other items that the director determines may present a hazard of moving Japanese beetle. To summarize, here in Pasco, it's a population of 5 beetles, and we really hope that we can take this situation that's a really low population and eradicate this population relatively quickly, just to show that the results of quarantine and treatments in conjunction with community outreach and continued trapping can lead to us eradicating the beetle. We've seen good results in Grandview, and we hope to continue seeing good results in Grandview, but we want to show that in this new area, we can successfully eradicate pretty effectively when we follow these guidelines. Thank you.
So what do you do with the yard debris?
So
At the drop-off location?
in Grandview, for example, because a lot of the alternative methods are quite costly, right now what we do is we actually just wait. And so we hold the yard debris there until adult Japanese beetles are no longer a risk. And so we wait until past that October 15th date to where there's definitely no adults flying around anymore. There's none alive, and so we can consider that waste pest-free, and then we can transport it wherever we want to dispose of it. The issue is transporting that waste during the adult flight season where there's a risk of transporting the adults with the debris. And in Pasco, for example, we're actually trying to develop a different strategy, which is going to be partnering with, hopefully partnering with the commercial composting company, Natural Selection Farms, where we can actually give the debris to them to compost, and they would then work through our plant services program through a compliance agreement to be able to move that waste in a manner that won't spread Japanese beetle.
What happens to the surrounding area where the debris is dumped? Won't the beetles just, if they transfer in with that debris, what keeps them from leaving your site?
Right. So we monitor this site really closely so there's really dense trapping around this area, and then there's traps along all these blocks. There's a trap in each of those bays, and those are monitored weekly. And we have not caught any beetles at this site in the 2 years we've been running it. So if we were to catch Japanese beetles, it wouldn't really be that high of a risk because we wait until there's no adults anyway in that waste to transport it. So if we find Japanese beetles here, the waste isn't moving, so it's not considered an issue.
They won't fly to the neighboring fields.
Oh, they'll definitely fly, but there's already Japanese beetles infesting the neighboring fields. This whole area is heavily infested already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so what's the distance an adult can travel?
Well, you see, the literature we have for that is not very up to date. We've been dealing with Japanese beetle for over 100 years in this country, and really early reports say, they can fly anywhere from 5, 10, 25 miles, but those are not verifiable records. So I think it's safe to say a Japanese beetle with its own power could fly probably, 1 to 5 miles on its own, but covering these distances of 35, 40 miles, that requires help from a human, through a vehicle or a truck or whatever it may be.
May I make a suggestion that we put in for a permit to burn this debris as soon as it arrives so that anything that's caught up in it will perish?
That's an option. Actually, we explored really early on in Grandview, but there were issues with the Clean Air Authority was,
Yeah.
they strike that down pretty quick. So we
Well,
had
it's a natural debris, so it can be burned. So what I'm saying is, as long as we don't have foreign material in there, that can be burnt.
Okay, yeah.
Do it out on the farms, so I know we can do that. And, because you're making a site here that, again, they can travel from and in fact, and populate. So we need to eradicate them, and that means kill them. A fire
Correct.
will do it. A compost pile will also do it. If you had compost right there, get that green vegetation in that compost. It's high heat. It'll kill them too.
Yeah, the problem is, monitoring the heat required to kill the grubs or it won't kill the adults. It would possibly kill grubs, but you need really close monitoring of the temperatures to ensure that it would kill those grubs. And the risk you talk about with a pile like this transporting Japanese beetle, that's why we keep the pile or the yard debris drop off in the quarantine. So people in that area bring the debris to that site and it doesn't move from the quarantine area is the goal. That people will bring it to the site for free instead of driving it miles and then, possibly paying to have that waste disposed of. And I do like your suggestion of
Yeah.
The
So
burning.
the other question is, with this weather that we've had, the adults all perish during the winter? Or do
Correct.
they burrow in and they can live through the winter?
No, it's one generation per year. So around middle of October is when the adults start to die out. And those are the ones that hatched the latest in the season. So around November, there's no adults around at all. And how they survive during the winter is the larvae or grubs, they will burrow into the ground. And you may ask, well, we had a cold snap there. And when that happens, the grubs simply burrow further in the ground. And that frost does not affect them, does not kill them.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the chair recognizes Mr. Baumann.
So freezing will kill a grub.
Yeah,
Okay. Would you back up to the map that you had up there, please?
sure. This one?
Yeah. So I believe on a couple of maps before that, it showed the first one was trapped on approximately on Road 80 or Road 76.
Yeah,
But
Road
you're-
76.
But you're showing the quarantine area being in a different location. What's the thought process there?
Yeah, so the thought process there, that's a great question. I should have clarified. So we follow a rule where we only expand a treatment area or propose a new quarantine expansion when we find 2 or more beetles in one of these 1 square mile grid cells during the whole trapping season. So we find 1 beetle in one of these 1 mile per 1 mile grid cells. We don't extend a treatment area for that 1 beetle, and we don't propose a new quarantine expansion for that 1 beetle. We're focusing on this grid cell over here, this purple next to the blue, because we found multiple beetles in that square mile. And that goes the same. It's the same thing in Wapato or our Grandview area grids. That's the way we expand and adjust those boundaries every year, is based on those trapping results.
Okay, thank you. So the life cycle of a Japanese beetle is in larva stage. It's in the ground, comes out in the spring, becomes an adult, breeds, and then lays its eggs on the ground.
Yeah, so that the reason we focus the treatments on turf grass is that's what we consider treatable area because because Japanese beetles lay their eggs on or in turf grass underground, as that's the main food source for the larvae when they hatch. So the larvae, the adults cause destruction on their own, but as larvae, they're not innocent. I mean, they tear up lawns and they eat the roots of turf grass and other ornamental plants. So they cause just as much damage as the adults do.
So this treatment, is there any collateral damage to people with their pets, livestock, anything like that? What would be considered the hazards of doing this treatment?
Well, acelepryn is considered a low-risk insecticide, and so it's safe to use around pets, livestock. If you have backyard chickens, you have dogs, cats. It's not considered harmful to any of those, including humans, of course. And when our contractor does these treatments, they of course follow all the label instructions, including us putting out as much messaging as possible to the public on our consent forms, on our post-treatment handouts, that we follow all label instructions indicating that a person or their pets should not enter the treatment area until the treatment is completely dry. So.
Okay, and then what does it cost to do this treatment, and how is that paid for?
So right now, the treatment budget or the whole eradication budget is based on state legislative funding, and so every year, our actions, all our eradication activities in Grandview or wherever we're performing them is all based off of legislative funding from the state, and we hire a contractor to do this work for us. Yeah.
Okay, and so to treat a square mile, roughly, what's the value of doing that?
Well, I can't answer for a square mile, but when we do put this bid out, we ask for bids in terms of dollars per acre to treat, and right now it's been averaging our contractor $1,400 to $1,500 per acre to treat.
$1,400 to $1,500 per acre to treat. Okay. All right. No further questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
How do you notify the people within the quarantine zone?
So right now, the quarantine has not been enacted, so there's no quarantine yet.
Right.
What there is we're probably going to treat in this area, if we have the funding to do it. And there's already mailers going out. They're at the printers right now that are going to go out to all residents that are in all 1,058 of these parcels will receive a letter in the mail with information from us, a frequently asked questions page about the treatments, and then a attached copy of the treatment consent form that they can go through. And there's many different ways that they can respond to us, whether it's a yes or a no, giving us treatment permission. So that's what the letters are going to look like.
Do you find any resistance to the treatment?
Yes, every year there are people that reject the treatment for one reason or another, but what really impacts our eradication program are the people that just don't reply. So there aren't actually that many people that full out reject the free treatment. It's just we have trouble reaching people sometimes, and that's what really drives our consent numbers down and the number of properties we treat down every year.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Do they do a follow-up with the people that don't respond, or?
Yeah, we do, and then this year especially, we've added a section in the consent form actually, asking for feedback on why they're rejecting, so that we can document those. We documented them last year, and then we're just doing it in a more, I guess, official way on the form this time, because last year we would follow up, over phone or email or whatever contact we had for them, and this year we're actually recording them on the forms if they choose to provide a reason.
But if they don't respond, do you have a second avenue to encourage them to?
If they don't respond,
participate?
to non-responders, usually in mid to late March or even early April, we'll send an additional mailer that's just, it's pretty much the same materials again, just kind of prodding them, say, hey, we're out in your area. It's a good time to give your treatment consent. Here's the form to do it. Here's some ways you can find more information if you have questions. And here's the ways to turn in the form.
All right.
So.
Just tell them you're going to fertilize it along with the treatment, and then everybody will be right on board.
Keep that in mind.
All right, any further questions? Is there anything that you want from the board here today?
No, I just appreciate your time, and you guys have asked some good questions, and I hope you guys, keep an eye out for Japanese beetle this next spring. And if you live in this area, then we hope to see your treatment permission form come in, so we can get rid of this thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you, guys.
appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, moving on to the IGA between Benton Franklin County and the City of Connell, presented by Derek Branton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a request to renew the contract that we have with the City of Connell for building services. We've been providing this service since 2006. For the most part, it hasn't really changed up until in 2019. We kind of did a one-year term just to make sure. We kind of produced a different version in 2020 that was a little bit more updated. This year, and then that termed in 23. Since then, we've been working with the city to add an additional service, a building official. The building official, what we've been doing before was just inspection and plan review for structures. They handle all the planning aspects as well as the intake and issuance of the permits in Connell. With this one, we've added a new service because they need building official services. Now, building official services are more in line with things like making structural determinations as regarding safety or, habitability of things. There's some other, and it's it's kind of an official determination where they can like red tag buildings and, this is not safe. There's other buildings, so it's more of a almost administrative aspect to building, and it's also an authority. The building official is a jurisdiction's top authority on building, is basically what that, I'm the director of planning, I'm the head of planning, right? And I'm kind of the, quote, legal authority. I make determinations and things like that. Those can, of course, always be appealed and this and that if an applicant doesn't agree with the determination. Well, the building official does that stuff on the building, the structural side. They interpret the building code. They look at and make calls and various things like that. because of the nature of what the building official does and the way that the dynamics associated with that role, rather than we can't really do a per project cost in staff's opinion, due to the fact that it's a fluid dynamic. So 1 minute the building official may be talking to an applicant or the city regarding building inspection questions. And then they ask a question that actually well, what's the determination regarding this element? Now we're doing building official stuff, and then it switches back all in a single conversation. So what we came up with, we looked at what our estimated time would be, cost, or the hourly rate of the building official, came up with basically a flat fee of $350 a month. And that's partly also because, frankly, we've never done this role for them. There may be a need to change or amend that at a later date, but let's see where it goes. So that's kind of where we're at. It would be for another 3-year cycle. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
How has the program been working in the past? I mean, is it
It's been good.
good?
Yeah.
You have a good relationship with the city of Connell?
We do, yeah.
Okay. All right, any further questions?
Couple of questions for you, Derek. Do we have a statutory obligation to provide this service for them?
No.
Where would this fall under our priority list as far as the stuff that we are doing as Franklin County Building and Planning versus how would it fall in our priorities?
I mean, like whether it would interfere with or potentially negatively impact our priorities. It hasn't. Basically the way we run it is similar to, here. Once we get the application approved, it's been released and the permit's been released, they call, schedule for appointments. We try to consolidate, like say we've got 2 or 3 projects up in that general vicinity. So we do that to minimize the trips. We do charge mileage. We haven't been, but we will be on this contract much more diligently. But at the same time, that mileage will be basically from our office to Connell, not tracking within Connell. So maybe they do 3 inspections in Connell on a single trip. We're not going to be tracking that movement within Connell because we're probably looking at less than a mile, by the time they drive around. So it's basically there and back, consolidating it to minimize trips. But we've had really no negative impacts from it. The volume isn't overwhelming. It is picking up, but it's well within our ability to handle.
So if we were to do 3 inspections on one trip, we would do mileage divided by 3, and that's how the charge would be per individual inspection.
It would be, the way it works is the city, we would send invoices to the city for the mileage, and it would just be.
They do that part of it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Can you give us kind of an idea of the recent history? You said they're picking up. Can you give us kind of an idea the volume per month?
Actually, Kathleen's here, and I honestly wouldn't be able to give you a number. I mean, we're talking, what I recall is probably we're usually running about 3 or 4 of their projects
Simultaneously.
On the high side, but sometimes we may go a month or 2 with nothing.
Okay.
Other times it may pop up like 3 or 4, like boom, 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 because development spurs development.
I'm familiar. I appreciate that. So I do appreciate your evaluation that it's really hard to track on an hourly basis. I'm familiar with that as in the line of work that I do. The $350 a month, can you kind of shed some light on how you come up with that? Part of the background for my question is the record keeping. As I went through this packet, looking at the record keeping component alone, could take significant time if people were to, begin looking at that, asking for, review of those records and so forth. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
That aspect, the record keeping, all that it's always been there. That's not about the building official. That's about us as the record keepers and the holders of the files so that everybody knows where to find the source material. We do not have really, so that's not an issue there. That's not really the building official. Where we came up with it is, you know, Mike's been doing this a long time, and let's be real, due to the role that he's in, he's been doing building official advice just because it's the nature of what's going to happen. You know, what's your determination on that? What do you think about this? These types of things. Where it came and why it was requested by the city is they had an incident in a structure where the roof got blown off, and they realized there wasn't and there were some other things that in their code calls for the building official. Well, they didn't have a designated building official. We didn't have a contract to act as the building official. For places like Basin City, Altopia, non-municipalities, we are their building official. It's just the way it rolls. And based, you know, again, using Mike's recollection and things like that, you know, it's a few hours, and I can't off the top of my head remember now. We've been working on this a while. But you know, it's a figure, and he'd be dealing with, you know, no more than probably a couple hours a day in a building official role. But there could be days where he doesn't do it at all. And then there could be other days where he's doing it, you know, going out there for a meeting, spending many more hours doing it. And it's just depending on what's going on in the environment. Generally, building official calls, like declarations regarding structures and stuff like that, it doesn't happen very often. We also have an on-call engineer and stuff like that that we would contact to assist the building official to make those determinations.
So looking at the distribution of collected, you know, building permit and plan review fees through that different allocations, some of it's 80%, some of it's 75%, some of it's 85%. And in the case of reinspection, it's 100%. Are those percentages adequate to cover the cost that we will incur by providing these services?
Yes. Yeah. And frankly, they're a little higher than, you know, industry standard is in the 65 to 75% range. That was one of the modifications that were made in 2020. We found that the rates we were charging weren't adequately, you know, and whether it does it 100%, like, you know, that's going to fluctuate from year to year. I mean, but, you know, it's a good deal for the city. But also at the same time, the availability of third-party inspection services is extremely limited and sometimes can't be obtained in this area. On the west side, there's a few different groups. Out here, there's only one that I'm aware of. And there, last I heard, we used to use them. We don't really use them anymore because it just, they're overwhelmed because they act as the agency for various cities as well. So it's limited. So that's another reason we have the interest in providing the service.
So when we are providing this building official, you know, that official service, two questions on that, I guess. So this building official, do we assume any risk as a county, or do they wholly carry the risk? So that's one piece of the question. The other piece is, what if they don't like the decision of our building official? What?
Okay, on the first one, oh God, my brain just blanked. Sorry.
Do we assume risk for
Risk, thank
our
you.
building official doing in their jurisdiction?
I would have to say probably. There is risk involved due to the fact that we're making an official determination. People can challenge those determinations, and if the challenge is successful, then there would be potential liability associated with that. And that's the case anytime we enter into agreements like this.
Okay, and then that other piece. What if our building official says, in a professional opinion of our building official, that we should do one thing, and they don't like that, or they challenge that? What would that look like?
We would. This is our official position. If the city were to go against that, then what happens is that's on you.
Okay,
We won't sign off on that building. We won't officially, in our role as building officials or inspectors or plan reviewers, certify that we agree with that dynamic.
okay. Thank you for that. So, my fellow commissioners, I think that that's something that we should consider before passing this resolution, is whether we take on risk on behalf of another agency. Is that something, Sean, that you could
John's
speak
going to
to?
have plenty to say.
And Chair, permission to speak when I have the opportunity. Yeah, just
you're
make sure
done.
Commissioner Bauman's done.
The chair
Yeah, okay.
recognizes Mike Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair. And throughout the process, and Sean came over to remind me, I don't know if we want, is it opposition or there's concern, and I've worked with Jeff Briggs pretty closely on this, and I know they have concern about the agreement, and I'll let them explain the legalities of it. So I definitely want to give the prosecuting attorney's office a chance to weigh in about the risks that, because there certainly are some. So,
And they're definitely better to be able to articulate that than I am, so.
so Sean, take the opportunity to speak.
I'm not going to go into the details, but I think Commissioner Bauman, you're raising the exact points and concerns that we have. I mean, really, you're talking about funding something that is outside of the county's obligations. We have a duty to the taxpayers and basically the unincorporated areas of Franklin County. And by basically engaging in a contract where we really don't know true cost and the true assessment of risk at this point in time, our office has basically been in opposition to doing this until certain details can be flushed out, including risk. And just to consider, I guess, the financials, you've got the city of Connell. They collect taxes for being able to provide these kind of services. Well, if they want us to assume and take on that risk and everything else, then we should basically get 100% of those tax revenues that would come and pay for this. Essentially what you have is, I equate this to being able to be in a position where you don't buy fire insurance, but when you see things getting hot, you go ahead and reach out and contact your agent and purchase a policy. That's what we're essentially doing, is we really don't know the extent of risk, and I would be against it from the information that we've seen. I've talked to Jeff and others, but we could go into more details about other circumstances that I don't want to get into in a public forum, but certainly there are cost and risk that we would be concerned with, that we could certainly share with the board in executive session if the board wants to continue this matter for a week, or we could have an executive session today briefly just to share some of those concerns. I think that would be a more appropriate forum to get into those details and be able to answer the board's questions.
Thank you for that. That would be my mind, that we would continue this to allow for a further understanding. As I read through this packet, there was concerns that I had as I went through it that I didn't feel were adequately answered. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Do we have any other further questions?
None here.
But Mr. Bratton, all right.
Anything else?
Any further questions for Derek?
No further.
Bratton, no questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. With that direction, we'll either look for a motion to approve or to put it off till next week.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we would continue this resolution to next week to allow for further discovery.
Do I have a
Concur.
second?
I concur.
Concur? All right, so we will move that onto next week's agenda. Ordinance 01-2024, current use open space, presented by John Rosenau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, in 2005, there was an ordinance that would allow the county to charge for the current use applications and processing. We modified that in 2021, towards the end of the year, because the state was raising recording fees, and what we were charging wouldn't even cover the costs of what we were having to pay. They've raised those fees again as of the first of this year. So the ordinance before you is pretty much identical to the one in 2021, with the exception that instead of having a flat rate for everything, we listed what our administrative fee would be, which would be $250, and then we simply said, and appropriate recording fees or costs at the time of filing, because we don't know what the state is going to continue to do on recording fees. They're up over $300 now just to record an item. And so, you know, again, we keep falling behind because of what the state is, and I'm trying to prevent us from having to redo an ordinance or resolutions or anything every time the state changes something or fees. So if they go down, this would automatically reduce the cost. If they go up, it would automatically increase the cost and yet keep our administrative fee of what it costs for our office to process it at the $250. So if there's any questions.
No questions here.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number 01-2024 as presented.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Moving on to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair. Been working hard with the HAPO Advisory Board meeting that we had yesterday evening. Currently, we have 3 board members at this point. So the city of Pasco has 1 open spot. Franklin County has 2 open positions. I've received some inquiries, so I think we've got some good candidates out there. So hopefully I'm going to bring a few people to next board meeting. So excited about some of the prospects. I don't necessarily want to say them out loud because they're not, you know, they're not quite sure, but they're sure. So we'll get to that point. There is an opportunity for a 7th member. Once the board's set up to be a 6-member board with the board having the opportunity to make a 7th choice, you know, and that's on them. Also, concerning the HAPO Center, I've been working with the city of Pasco to set up a meeting. I know we talked about setting up a joint meeting with their city council, so I've been communicating with the city manager. So he got feedback from his council feeling like it was a little premature for full council to meet with the full commission in a meeting. So what he would like to do is have the 2 HAPO advisory board members that are city council people, that's Melissa Blasdell and Leo Perales, for each of you to meet with them individually and then kind of flesh out some agenda items that we could talk about, you know, in our intent. And because there's a lot of things to work out. I thought it was a good HAPO advisory board meeting yesterday. We talked very frankly, and, you know, there was a lot of issues that were discussed, kind of the future and the vision of it and some of the direction. But overall, that it has to really be a collective effort working together with the county and the city. And Larry Leisure presented yesterday along with HWL, so I thought it was a fruitful meeting. So I'll be working with each of your guys' calendar so we can get over there and talk with the city. Been working quite a bit with Commissioner Bauman, spending a lot of time in the office. He's had a chance to attend 3 of my department head meetings, so I've been really impressed, you know, how hard he's working and how quickly he's grasping everything. And, you know, great to have him, you know, from a development standpoint, because so much of what we do is land use and infrastructure. And so just really been impressed with his work ethic and how he's working with staff and meeting with everybody. And so, yeah, he's been a breath of fresh air for sure. He's also working with Government Affairs Coordinator Jason Valentine. We met yesterday morning. He and Commissioner Bauman are headed over to Olympia tomorrow and Friday. They've been working. I was part of those meetings, so I'm going to bring Jason up as part of this update and give Commissioner Bauman a chance to kind of tee it up, because they've been working really hard to have a really fruitful meeting. So I'll toss it over to Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you. Yeah, excited. We've been, Jason and I've met quite a few times and did it with Mike a few times and in preparation for going over there, and looking forward to Franklin County having a front seat in front of our legislators. Have been working with a lot of them. I believe we have 5 meetings currently set between Thursday and Friday, and we're also meeting with our lobbyists, the Water Street Group, and really looking forward to that, and excited to go and attend those meetings. So go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Commissioners. As you alluded to, we are off to Olympia tomorrow and Friday. And before delving into our goals for that trip, I do want to take this opportunity to introduce myself in this public hearing. For those who may not be aware, about 3 weeks ago, I recently assumed the Government Affairs Coordinator position. It is a new position, so naturally there would be questions on exactly what my duties are. In essence, I wear a lot of hats. My role is to serve as a liaison to our representatives in Olympia with the lawmakers. I'm also an advocate for Franklin County citizens, for our elected officials, for the commissioners, and I will continue to do that. Also, a crucial role with the administrative office and their goals for 2024 and beyond. Also be involved in grant identification. That's going to help some of our funding crunches for the county coming up. Next week, we're talking with the offices of Dan Newhouse, Patty Murray, and Maria Cantwell in association with the Benton Franklin Council of Governments to help us work out some solutions with possibly some federal assistance. So we are looking forward to doing that. As he mentioned, I'm in direct communication with our lobbying firm, Water Street LLC. They boast over a decade of experience navigating through Olympia, so their assistance and knowledge has been invaluable and will continue to be at least this year. Regarding our upcoming trip to Olympia, again tomorrow and Friday, 5 lawmakers so far, which include Representative Stephanie Bernard, Mark Clicker, April Connors, and Senator Nikki Torres. Our primary focuses, we've been talking about it a lot, we did last week. One of them is upgrades for the HAPO Center. For folks who don't know, it is owned and operated by Franklin County with financial assistance from the city of Pasco. The HAPO Center, a definitive local economic driver. Among the planned upgrades is especially for a new HVAC system, which will comply with the latest state regulations. We're also advocating for funding for our Office of Public Defense, addressing a statewide crisis dealing with the lack of public defenders that could result in criminal cases being dropped. It is a financial burden for counties throughout our state. Now, the Washington State Association of Counties, or WASAC, has issued a lawsuit against the state on this issue, so nothing will be resolved in the legislative session until this is resolved, but we're going to continue to keep pressure on the legislature so this issue is not forgotten. Senator Nikki Torres, Mike has worked with her a lot, has been an advocate for us on this issue. Furthermore, we are seeking support for radio upgrades for the Sheriff's Office, addressing a need that brings together fire and police officials from Franklin County and also Benton County and the 3 cities. In essence, the system needs to change frequency and be able to work with the older frequency. Additional goals for 2024, we are seeking funding for that new building for the coroner. We're also monitoring several bills that our elected officials have either told us to oppose or support. I have a spreadsheet on that. Commissioner Baumann and I are very enthusiastic about heading to Olympia, championing our county's needs, and working towards resolutions, hopefully in the near future. And as always, what I'm doing, building relationships that just have not been as robust in the past, and those bearing fruit this year and for the years to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Baumann.
Thank you for this opportunity, Chair. Have been working very hard. It's interesting. I love architecture, and I think we have a beautiful building here. And several mornings this week, and last week, I got here early and kind of watched the building wake up and walked around with a cup of coffee and really enjoying this opportunity that I've been given to get to represent the county in this way. Last week, attended the 2024 Pasco Chamber of Commerce Hall of Fame and enjoyed watching the different outstanding people that have had impacts to our ag community that were honored there. And it was a really well-attended event despite the heavy snowfall that was happening. And that was interesting, and I was really thankful. I also got a call from one of our farmers in the north end of the county, and so got up early and headed up there on Friday morning and was really impressed with the snow plows going and everything that's happening the way it was happening. They're doing a great job. I've attended, like Mike said, 3 department head meetings and enjoyed getting to know the processes that they're going through as we went through that. And as you know, that there's been concern for some of the policies that we've had, so I've been doing reading a lot of policies, some of them new, some of them old. I appreciated our Public Works Director, County Engineer gave me that our snowplow policy. Did that without asking, and as I read through it and I got to the end of it, I think that policy was from 2004. And as I read through it and I got done, I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That policy, as far as I know, really doesn't need to be updated. So while some policies are very old, from 2004, it's still effective today. So good policy doesn't necessarily need to be updated every year, and so I appreciate Craig for getting that into my hands. One thing that we did talk about with the department heads is a request that I had of them, if they would please identify the policies that they have that exist today, and then identify missing or policies that they believe that their department needs. And then the third was to ask them to identify how they feel that we should go about updating the policies within their department. So try to see if we can start moving this where that we go through a county-wide policy update where that we can get those that do need updated. And so I believe that they are already working on that, and thank you to Mike and the coordination that we've had through those conversations in saying, identifying where that we have those that do need updated. As Jason shared with us, lots of coordination in preparation for going to Olympia tomorrow and Friday. One of the concerns that our sheriff has had is about this governor-appointed board that the legislator has been considering passing a law that would give this appointed board jurisdiction over an elected official, a sheriff or an elected police chief. And so have been on the phone with our legislators about that, and two of our legislators specifically have indicated that they believe that bill is headed for failure. And so thankful to hear that, and thankful that our legislators have been working hard on our behalf. Yesterday had a meeting with the Department of Commerce and the Basin City Water District about some of the concerns that the Basin City Water District has and some of the needs that they have. They indicated that the piping system is almost 100% updated, but the needs that they have is then updating from the main line to a water meter. And one of the reasons for them having this need is because they gave an example. They're slowly adding meters to their system, and they had two houses with like family sizes, like house sizes, where that once they were on a water meter, the one house was using an average of 167 gallons per day, and the other house was using over 2,000 gallons a day. Yet the way that their system is set up, it's a flat rate, so everybody's paying the same. So a part of the oversight of a public water system like that is they cannot start charging different rates until everybody is metered. And so they have already purchased the meters. They are asking for some help with funding to get that stuff installed. And so they're working hard. A couple of things about that system. They do have 4 wells in total. 2 of those are high nitrate wells, and 2 of them are low nitrate wells. And because of, I do have experience in this realm in the past. Sometimes you can blend so that you can stay below the acceptable rate of nitrate levels. Sometimes you can blend, but these 2 high nitrate wells are so high that they cannot use them to blend. And so their water table is slowly being drawn down. So they do have some concerns there. They're not urgent today, but they are upcoming concerns. And so there's some additional work going to be done in exploring ways that they can fix some of these issues. So was thankful to be able to be a part of that meeting and understand a little bit more of what was going on. I was at the HAPO Center Advisory Board meeting last night, and there's 3 members currently on that board, the mayor of Colotis, as well as 2 members of the Pasco City Council. And so we do have some vacancies on that board. Mike has been working on that. And for anybody that would feel like that they could be a good representative from Franklin County, the unincorporated area of Franklin County, please reach out to County Administrator Mike Gonzalez to go through the process of application to that board. And it would be really good to get that board up to full members so that we can address some of the needs that we have. And wanted to say thank you to our clerk, Michael Killian. Had the opportunity to have a very, very thorough walkthrough of his office, meet his staff, and he very generously gave his time and gave me a really thorough tour, and that was really enjoyed that, better understanding of all of the details of his office, and the IS gave me a tour above the dome. That was really enjoyable. I love architecture, and I really appreciate that opportunity to go see that. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
All right. Chairman Didier.
No, I'm just a commissioner now. You're the chairman.
I'm sorry. Chairman did it again.
All right.
Commissioner
well,
Didier.
It was, yeah. Board of Health meeting last week. We're getting acquainted with the new committee members on that board. Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Coalition executive meeting, and then the stakeholder meeting, Ben Franklin Council of Governments meeting. And then just want to, not a lot there to report on other than the fact that I'm just getting acquainted with the Ben Franklin Council of Governments, but I just want to warn the people about the hazards of the roads today. It's the ice is gone, but the threat of accidents. Yesterday we had a heavy blanket of fog up north all day long, and then a car was driving and ran a stop sign, hit another vehicle, pinned that vehicle against a telephone pole. Kids were ejected from the car that ran the stop sign. We just leave early, take your time. Another accident up in Royal City, a school bus got hit, and every one of those kids is in the hospital. We're having accidents, major accidents, and we got to just slow down and get where we're going safely. I'm urging everybody to just take your time. The other thing I would like to ask my fellow commissioners is that maybe we contemplate a letter of support for our Bi-County Superior Court at this time, just to calm the waters if they are getting ruffled up. I don't want to break up a bi-county agreement that is working very well for us right now as far as our costs and where we're at for a budget. I want you to consider it and maybe think about it, and maybe next meeting we talk about it further. But I would like a letter of support for the bi-county agreement for Superior Court given to Benton County. Just think about it, look into it. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you. Last week, had the Disability Board meeting, Franklin County Emergency Management meeting, going over the budget and expectations from last year. Also had the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, the Ag meeting the other night. Was a success and met all the expectations of what they had for the event. And then had the agenda meeting with Mr. Gonzalez. And one of the things that did come up was one of the meetings with, we need to find a representative for HAEF, I can't even pronounce it, but HAEIF board. It was something that I was on that Mr. Peck had taken over, and now with Mr. Peck being gone, we need to find a representative to sit on the HAEFIG board.
And Chair, permission to speak. I did speak to Commissioner Novakovich. I ran into him at an event, and he did make a suggestion of Josie Kelzer. He asked if our treasurer would be interested, because she'd be a good fit for that.
All right.
Possibly. So I haven't had the chance to ask her, so she might be interested if she's listening. So, but she would be a good fit with her financial knowledge, and so anyway, that's one suggestion.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to get it addressed this week.
Okay,
So.
absolutely. I'll reach out to Josie personally and see.
All right, moving on to administration office business. Presentation of the Growth Management Act presented by Jeff Briggs, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney.
Oh, it's logged in, okay.
And Chair, real quickly, this is something we've had a few conversations about the past few meetings about, the possibility of leaving the GMA or what the ramifications are staying. So, based on some of those conversations, I reached out to Derek and the PA's office just so we were able to have a good idea of, if we left, or is there really a possibility to leave, or is it, basically a violation of the law if you leave? So I really wanted to have a good, frank discussion so we have the facts and we know what direction to head in.
The short answer is no. I'm kidding. All right, and that concludes my presentation. My
Short
first
and to the
time
point.
actually dealing
Thank
with
you. All in
the-
favor?
My first time actually dealing with the, gosh, I haven't done this in so long. I haven't done a PowerPoint, I think, since college. So my first experience with the comprehensive plan, it was my first job out of college. I was working as a planner in Whatcom County, and
What year was this?
2007.
Okay.
And one of the things in Whatcom's code was that, where's the, sorry, I'm fumbling through this. One of the provisions in the code was for any subdivision, you have to ensure compliance with the comprehensive plan. So my boss asked me, he said, have you reviewed this for compliance with the comprehensive plan? And I said, well, yeah, I read it. It's really long, and it doesn't say anything. And he said, exactly. He's like, now put that thing away and don't ever read it again. So that was my first experience with but now, of course, here I am. It's kind of funny telling everyone why we need to adhere to it, because there are some important things. I think when the rubber hits the road, it's not something where you're really dealing with it directly. It's just some document, right? But if a developer comes in, and that was my function in the county, when a developer comes in to submit a plat, vested and develop, they're not generally looking at the comprehensive plan. They're looking at your development regulations, and we'll get into how that sort of ties in. So, oops, other way. Okay. So who must plan? Initially, there's this trigger. We're well past that. So population over 50,000, and then an increase of 10% over 10 years.
So Jeff, on that point right there, we have two counties that have opted out that are not, they're over that population. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that specifically. I know there were a couple that had opted out.
Cowitz is over 100,
Okay.
and the other one is Grays Harbor.
Okay.
They're at
And I can
90.
look into that offline. I'll look into that and maybe see specifically why. I want to say Cowlitz. I used to live in Cowlitz County, Castle Rock, actually. I think they are spelled out as ones that have to periodically review. I'm just going to go to the next slide. There's another reason why we have to plan is that there's a major review every 10 years. And that RCW that I cited, I know it's awesome putting that in slides. Everyone loves to see that. That 3670A 135C, that actually spells us out. It says Franklin County shall have their next major update by June 30th. So there's major reviews, and that's sort of when you're looking at everything. And then there's periodic reviews that happen every year. That's where you have people coming in. There's this thing called the future land use map. That's one of the parts of the comprehensive plan that isn't a bunch of nonsense words. That's very important. What the future land use map is doing is it's saying this is what land designations you can have in your zoning. Most jurisdictions, but not all, what they do is they have a range of zones. So say within this land use designation, you can be R1, R2, R3, et cetera. You could have it where your land use designation and your zoning coincide. Some jurisdictions do that, in which case it would be difficult to do the periodic review of it, but certainly that's possible. But ours isn't structured that way. So that's the annual review. And then the major review, again, you're still looking at that future land use map, but you're also designating urban growth areas, you're designating critical areas. I didn't, I included capital facilities, obviously also on your future land use map, you're having your land use designations, which in other words is what zoning designations can occur within those areas. So that's your 10-year review. You're looking at sort of everything. Capital facilities, we'll get into these in more detail on the next slide, but I think we know what capital facilities are. So again, why plan? These are the sort of things we've been talking about. Critical areas, resource lands designation. We want to designate critical areas, obviously, for reasons around here would be geologically hazardous areas. We don't have a whole lot of wetlands. We don't have a whole lot of wildlife preservation areas and things like that. So it's really more about, those sorts of areas. Resource lands, you want to protect those. That would be mineral resource lands and agricultural lands of course, we all know what those are, right? The ag lands of long-term commercial significance. And then the urban growth areas, those are important. Again, those are based on your 20-year growth projections that are given to you from Commerce. You designate those, and the whole purpose of those is you're coordinating with the cities, because the cities also have comprehensive plans, and the cities are basically their capital facilities element of their comprehensive plan. Their goal there is to provide urban services to every area in our urban growth areas, our UGAs, to meet that 20-year planning horizon. So that would be sewer, stormwater, sidewalks, water. And the reason why you want to provide those services is to avoid things like donut holes, right? And we have these 2 donut holes in the middle of the city of Pasco. City of Pasco has made that clear in their prior council meetings. I know when Rick White worked there, he was a huge proponent of, we don't want to annex these areas, because in the donut holes, what has happened is there's been development. It's an urban growth area, but there's been development with not urban level services. A lot of those areas have city water, they're on septic, and it's very expensive once they're developed to provide those services, right? Because they would have to go in, they're going to have to, the land's already been developed, so they've got to extend sewer, which is really expensive. And then how do you pay for that sewer? Well, you could have a developer come in, but it's difficult because, these lands aren't in common ownership. So you might have someone like Jeff Kelly coming in and doing development in the donut holes, but those areas are far and few in between. You can form local improvement districts, but then you're sort of causing the individual landowners, who don't have the financial ability to pay for the urban services. So the city says, the heck with it, we're not annexing those areas, hence the donut holes, right? Well, what are solutions to that? Well, we could have joint development standards in our UGA. That means that the city gets what they want. We do an interlocal agreement, right? So we say, we're going to give you what you want. We're going to require development in our urban growth areas to have urban services and develop to city standards. The city says, great, we'll annex those areas, and then it can meet up with our other goals, like our transportation goals, so we don't have these communities that don't necessarily connect with roads and things like that. So that's one potential solution to avoiding the donut hole problem. The other thing I wanted to point out with the capital facilities are use of .09 funds. So .09 funds, I know we had the port come in and present, and they, I think it might have been last week, and they talked about all these uses of .09 funds and how they're used for economic development. That's right, they are used for economic development, but that's really only half the story. They also have to be for facilities that are identified in the capital facilities element of somebody's comprehensive plan. Doesn't have to be ours, could be the cities, could be the ports, whoever, but it has to be tied into someone's comprehensive planning. So again, comprehensive planning is tied into .09 funds. And then of course the last thing that a comprehensive plan does, this isn't covering everything, by the way, this is just a thumbnail sketch obviously, but the other big thing that it does is development regulations. You have to marry your development regulations two-year comprehensive plan so that they make sense together. And that's a big part of the plan review process. What happens if we don't plan? Well, if we rescinded our comprehensive plan, any action we take doesn't take effect for 60 days. There's a new, this was something that was passed, I think, in 2021. They called it the vesting loophole. It used to be you pass a comprehensive plan, someone like FutureWise hates it. They come in and sue us. Well, tough luck, FutureWise. We already vested a bunch of permits, and those are vested, and they were vested in accordance with the law that was in effect when the comprehensive plan was passed. And those parcels you don't get to, argue about because they already have vested permits. Well, now they've told that. So any action that alters your comprehensive plan in certain ways is told for 60 days, which coincides with the appeal period for the Growth Management Hearings Board. So we pass something someone doesn't like, they appeal it within 60 days, and now we're before the Growth Management Hearings Board. And if we don't correct any action, if we rescinded our comprehensive plan or just didn't plan within the Growth Management Act, well, then we're looking at sanctions. I had cited the two main RCWs, but there's some whacks here I'd like to get into as well. So the government can withhold all these taxes, right? Motor vehicle fuel tax, so transportation improvement account, rural arterial trust account, sales tax. The big one that's really scary isn't that or the monetary sanction. It's that they could withhold our ability to collect real estate excise taxes, which is, would be a real severe sanction. Let's see. There's also urban growth areas. So as I alluded to earlier, we sort of coordinate our planning efforts with the cities, and we designate their urban growth areas where they can grow. Well, if we rescind our comprehensive plan, the cities can't annex those areas, and they also can't extend utilities because there's actual restrictions on the ability of cities to extend water and sewer into areas outside of a urban growth boundary. They can only do so to protect life and health. It used to be before the Growth Management Act that they had these things called boundary review boards, and those entities would dictate what was annexed, where utilities were extended. Those laws are actually still in the books, by the way. I looked and they're still there, but those entities don't exist anymore. So if we rescinded our comprehensive plan, we wouldn't have a basis. The cities wouldn't have any way to grow beyond what they've already annexed. And it would be confusing for the development community. I don't know why I capitalized that, but there it is. We talked about .09 funds. So yeah, that's it. And there's also grants. And this actually comes from a, did I not grab the email that Derek gave me? Left it. Those grants, and this actually comes out of the administrative code. You won't find it in the RCWs, but there's administrative code that also deals with what happens in the event of non-compliance. Well, and I guess there is the, so there's, where's the email we had? Okay. So there's a Public Works Trust Fund. I'm sure Mr. Urban could speak more to that, but we essentially get a lot of grants from the state, and those grants, our scoring for those grants is based at least in part on our compliance with the Growth Management Act. We also have so various roads they outline. I think Page Road, McElhenney Road, Millwood Road, Murphy Road. Those all received grants from the state for the paving of those roads. There's also funds that we would be at risk of losing: the Centennial Clean Water Fund, Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and to be honest, I don't know very much about those funds. We were also going to potentially use it as a resource to pave Palouse Falls Road and to pave trailheads up at Palouse Falls. It could be a funding source for arterial routes in unincorporated areas, the Riverview area, Fanning Road area, and a funding source for county measures to, mitigate disaster damage. And that's those water pollution control funds that are also based upon state grants. So there's definitely legal peril, I would say, to rescinding our comprehensive plan or not participating in that process. It's no secret that the state taxes us a lot. They tax our citizens a lot, and they use that tax money as sort of a carrot, right, to get us to comply with this. Because if you read the Comprehensive or the Growth Management Act, it talks about encouraging us to do this, but I mean, this doesn't sound like much encouragement. It sounds like a gun being held to our head. But I don't know that there's much a very good rosy path outside of complying with this. I would actually advocate that maybe going the other route and working more with the city especially during our 10-year review process, to see if we can clean up some of our urban growth areas and make it so we don't have these weird areas within the city that are still county, and that the city's taking this hard line, that they're not going to annex. Certainly, we don't want to repeat that history. So that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Didier.
Yeah, anybody out there can just Google Growth Management Act, and you can read up. It's updated yearly, and there are 18 counties required, because they signed into it, to fully plan. And I believe there are 3 on our side of the mountains, which is Yakima, Spokane, and Grant. Then there are 11 counties opted in to plan fully, and we're one of those. But then there are 11 counties subject to critical areas and natural resource lands requirements only. Now, Cowlitz and Grays Harbor are both in part of that. Ferry County and Skamania County both opted out. Skamania exercised the ability to opt out. I believe it was in 2000, because this was all put into place in 1990. It's been here for a while. Ferry County opted out of the planning resolution in 2016. And as of this date right now, there is mandatory comp plan elements, optional comp plan elements, and as of 2023, the climate change and resiliency element was added in 2023 as a mandatory. We are now participating in this climate change, and this is going to be bringing more and more restrictions. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jeff. They use our money as leverage against us. And unless we play their game, we don't get it back. It's our money. We tax our citizens, we send it to the state, and then we got to play their game to get it back. They have now opted in 2023, we're into this climate change, and there's talk of solar panel farms. This is going to eat up the ag ground. And the ag ground, that's one thing, we can't build on ag ground, but we can certainly put solar panels over ag ground. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think it's at odds with the policy of preserving all techs, and it's no secret that, we're surrounded by them. We have, a lot of agricultural land to the north. I shouldn't say we, the city is, right? The city's surrounded Pasco to the north by agricultural land, so where does it grow? And it would certainly seem at odds with the policy of preserving all techs that you would put solar panels over them. You can't grow underneath solar panels. The other big one that's coming up is planning for, as part of our land use element. I didn't really get into that as in my overview, but as part of our land use element, we would need to be planning for housing for all sectors of our community, which I don't know, that's going to be a big one, meaning how do you encourage, right, through your development regulations, someone to provide housing for low-income individuals? I mean, I don't know how you zone that. I mean, a person, a developer is going to want to, and they have the right under the Fifth Amendment to make the highest, and best use of their land within the regulations. So how do you encourage that through regulations? And could that potentially be a issue where you have takings challenges to regulations?
And I'd just like to add that I think that it's a start of a discussion, and we need to discuss it. I'm going to be taking this to the Eastern Washington Council of Governments, a lot of the counties in the east side here, the ones that are, Grant County. I'm going to talk to them and see if they'd be willing to join us. If we get enough counties that come together and say, we're not playing this game anymore, and they say, well, we're not going to send you back your money, we could say, as a local government, we're not sending you any more of our money. We will use our money here for our roads, for our everything that we want to do. If we have any left over, we'll send it to you. I mean, at some point in time, it's going to come to this confrontation. And the further we get down this rabbit hole, the way we're going, it's going to be harder to get out. So just to begin of a discussion, I thank you.
Good discussion. Chair recognizes Mr. Bauman.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Briggs. Several things that I appreciate. Something that Commissioner Didier just said is that it's the beginning of a conversation. I think that's very true. I have been impacted by this in my business. I've been studying it very hard, and there's many components, and it's like a gun being held to our head. It really is. I've watched our county planning and building struggle with trying to comply with the gun. I've watched the city do that, try to comply with the gun that's being held to our head, and they're holding our money against us in that process, and I think that's unfortunate. A couple of things that you said that I do really appreciate is that I think that we should work better together in coordination with, potentially through a joint development agreement or that type of a thing. I have a lot of experience in that actually for many years. I have been the developer that was caught in between the county and the city because the city says you must and the county says you must, and when they don't get together as a developer, you get caught in between, and you lose. And developers do have a right to the highest and best use, and so there's some of these you shall and you must that come into conflict with the rights that we have as citizens of this county. And so I look forward to a continued conversation. I have already begun a conversation with one of our state representatives that has some expertise in this area, and have been trying to understand if there's a way that they will help us with this. There are lawmakers, and if we can, one thing that I'm really excited about tomorrow, Friday, that we're going to have a seat at the table. I'm looking forward to Franklin County having a seat at the table. I've said this before, I have most of my eggs in my Franklin County basket. I want Franklin County to be successful, and I want my neighbors to be successful, and the Growth Management Acts is a gun that's been held to our head, and you shall and you must, and it's unfortunate because the very thing that is a success mechanism for our county, which is the taxes that we pay, is being held against us because somebody else has an agenda for Franklin County. They believe they know better for us than we know for us, and so I think that's unfortunate. So I agree this needs to be a continued conversation, and thank you for your presentation.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Briggs. I appreciate the presentation.
Sure.
Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, good morning. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'm from Connell. My name's Kathleen Koch. I'm the city administrator. And I wanted to speak on behalf of the interlocal agreement. If this isn't the appropriate time, I'd be happy to do that at a different time. Would this
You're
be okay?
welcome. You're a citizen, and certainly can.
Well, I just wanted to maybe give a few thoughts from our perspective as you consider it in your next meeting or executive session or whatever you end up doing. As Derek said, we've had this agreement for almost 20 years, for a very long time. And to my knowledge, we have not had issues that have brought litigation to the county or that has been problematic for the county. We've had a great relationship. We very much appreciate what the county's doing for us. You don't just serve Connell, but you also serve Mesa and Colotus. So I think there are greater implications to not continuing this because it could impact all three of your jurisdictions that are incorporated. And so I think you really want to consider that because it's important to all of us that are very small for us to be able to hire full-time staff. It's just not really feasible when staff talks about getting a portion of the revenue. We're absolutely willing to pay our fair share, but for us to hire somebody full-time to sit there when our activity just is not there, it would make no sense. And so us being able to partner with the county would continue to be very critical. We do have staff, and I think Derek mentioned it briefly, that handles much of the day-to-day and the administrative work. He takes all of the burden off of your staff as much as possible, and we take on absolutely everything we can. Our staff handles building and planning, but ours is more of the administrative level, does not have the training to go out and do the inspections, to be a building official, to do that level of work. That's very technical, requires a lot of time and commitment, and the things that you have invested that we're certainly, like I said, willing to pay our fair share to help with that. We've had a handful of times, I think I can count it on one hand in my 2.5 years at Connell, that we've needed a building official, but we've needed a building official. If you heard about the roof blowing off of the American Legion building, we were up a creek without a paddle and had to figure it out for ourselves, and we're not very equipped. We had to contact attorneys and pay a lot more money to attorneys to handle that and figure out how to red tag it for ourselves. And we've had a couple of other small issues, but that was the big one. I think I shared with Mr. Briggs, and I think, is it Sean Sant? I'm sorry, I don't think I've ever met him, because I'm getting familiar with Franklin County. I've been in Benton County for about 20 years, and so now that I work in Connell, I'm getting much more familiar with all of you. And so when I spoke to Mr. Briggs, I shared that, maybe there's some language that the attorneys can work out that really helps the county feel like we're owning our role. I would think that outside of willful and negligent conduct, or where maybe the training didn't happen that should have, something to that effect, we can potentially name you as an additional insured or whatever it happens to be, whatever the attorneys could work out.
All right, thank you. It is public comment, so we're
Yes.
not allowed to engage, but we do
Very
appreciate
good.
your comments. And
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks. Anyone else for public comment? And please limit it to 3 minutes. There is a bell you'll hear.
I don't think
just to
that's
kind
a
of wrap it
problem.
up in the last
I don't think I
minute.
have 3 minutes worth of
All right, thank you.
content. I just want to thank the county, especially the building and planning. I'm the person that takes in I'm the permit technician of Connell. I also wear many other hats, and because I do so and have to, based on our logistics of our small city, I've really enjoyed working with the building and planning department, with Derek as he came in. I've been 10 years in this position, and we've had your services all along and been grateful for it. I don't think we've been a problem. I've worked diligently with Mike and Dale Brown before him, and even Jim Cherry before him. And we've had a number of times where expansion of the prison, back when Jim Cherry was there, the new school, elementary school. We now have Ace Hardware store going in. We're really excited about our new grocery store that's being rebuilt, a new one. And we also have a new subdivision that's being expanded to phase 2 of Oasis. and that'll be 100+ homes, or well, up to 100 homes. And so we need you. We really need your services. As Derek alluded, there are not other services out available for us in Eastern Washington. And if they are, they're usually coming from Oregon. And the availability of coming to do inspections and to do the plan reviews for us and being able to converse back and forth is just not there. Not to mention the expense of it. And I don't know that we're worried about the expense. We can recoup that. It's just that we want developers to come into Connell who they've been knocking on our doors, and we've been really trying to oblige them. And the idea that we have a service already in place that's very adequate, that we fit and have been fitting to continue on and let us see this other outbuild of another subdivision would be a great thing for Connell. And I appreciate it, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
George Dockstetter. I was talking to the gentleman out in the hall about this Japanese beetle. And I think the county needs to coordinate with the city and get a little bit more involved. Their return rate on inquiries to ask for permission is running around 40 to 45%. So that means over half the homes in the so-called area they want to treat are not answering, and they're not spraying. So that really doesn't do any good. You're only covering half the area. You're never going to get rid of all the beetles. And most of the people in West Pasco put their lawn clippings and tree clippings in the garbage can, and it ends up at the dump. And so it gets spread there. So I think if to protect our ag industry in this county, I think you need to get together with the city and be more forcible on getting these areas treated and what to do with the waste. There needs to be a highly concentrated plan to go around and knock on some doors. Otherwise, this thing's going to keep getting worse and worse every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Do we have anyone on the phone? Thank you. All right, moving on. Is there a need for executive session?
I believe there is, Chair.
All right.
I would ask for an executive session under RCW 4230-110 subsection I.
All right. We'll go into executive session. It's how much time do you think you will need?
15 minutes.
15
please.
minutes. And who needs to be present for the executive session?
Just the three of you and legal counsel.
All right, thank you. So we'll go into executive session. It's 10:38 and for 15 minutes.
We're close, but there's...
So, when you come back from there, Steve, give us a report on what's been said about you. I will. Because this thing that they just passed in 2023 is, that's why Amanda's so adamant about these solar farms, because they're all fully in. And they're gonna be taking land out to put in solar farms.
So, I need to coordinate with her and Mary Dye. Mary told me this has been a while.
We're still on.
Are we still on?
Yes.
Okay. Did they show you how to shut that off then?
Yeah.
I'll hold the door open then until you start.
Good job on the presentation.
Oh, thanks, yeah. I'll look into why that,
guy knows how, he's a utility player, he does everything. We're going to extend, by the way, that's what they call me.
Are you good to be the clerk to extend? Okay. You don't even need me anymore. I can go. Oh, don't say that. I can go back on my way. Okay, 15 minutes.
Busting up union work.
What's that?
We need to announce.
Yeah, he did announce, yeah.
We executive session.